True happiness begins when a person understands the meaning of tawakkul, placing complete trust in Allah while doing their best in life. Many people search for happiness in wealth, relationships, status, or achievements, believing that once they gain these things, their hearts will finally feel satisfied. Yet even after reaching their goals, they often feel empty, anxious, or afraid of losing what they have. This happens because the human heart was not created to rely on temporary things. It was created to rely on Allah alone. When reliance shifts from creation to the Creator, a deep and lasting peace begins to grow within the soul. Trusting Allah does not mean giving up effort or becoming passive. Tawakkul means working sincerely while believing that the final outcome belongs to Allah. A person plants the seed, waters it and cares for it, but understands that only Allah can make it grow. This mindset removes the heavy burden of trying to control everything. Much of human stress comes from fear of results, fear of failure, rejection, loss, or uncertainty. When someone truly trusts Allah, they realize that whatever happens has already been written with perfect wisdom. Success no longer creates arrogance, and failure no longer destroys hope. When reliance is placed on people, happiness becomes fragile. People's opinions change, their loyalty shifts, and their ability to help is limited. If someone builds emotional security on human approval, disappointment becomes inevitable. But when the heart depends on Allah, stability replaces emotional chaos. Even when people misunderstand you, leave you, or fail you, your inner peace remains intact because your source of strength is unchanging. Allah's mercy does not fluctuate with moods or circumstances, and knowing this gives the believer emotional independence. Tawakkul also transforms how a person views hardships. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the believer begins to ask, "What is Allah teaching me through this?" Trials are no longer seen as punishments, but as opportunities for growth, purification, and closeness to Allah. Difficult moments become reminders to return to Him, to make dua sincerely, and to strengthen faith. The heart finds comfort in knowing that every struggle carries hidden goodness, even if it cannot be seen immediately. Another beauty of trusting Allah is freedom from constant comparison. Many people lose happiness because they measure their lives against others. Social media, societal expectations, and competition make people feel behind or insufficient. Tawakkul shifts the focus away from comparison and toward purpose. You begin to understand that Allah distributes blessings differently for each person. Someone else's success does not reduce your share, and your journey is uniquely designed for you. This realization brings contentment and protects the heart from jealousy and resentment. Reliance on Allah also nurtures courage. When a person believes that Allah controls provision, opportunities, and outcomes, fear of the future begins to fade. Decisions are no longer driven by panic or desperation, but by faith and sincerity. You strive for what is good, trusting that Allah will open the right doors and close the harmful ones. Even uncertainty becomes bearable because you know you are under divine care. With tawakkul comes emotional relief. Overthinking decreases because you stop replaying worst case scenarios in your mind. Regret weakens because you accept that what passed was never meant to remain. Anxiety softens because tomorrow belongs to Allah. The heart rests in the certainty that nothing can reach you unless Allah allows it, and nothing meant for you can ever miss you. As trust deepens, worship becomes sweeter, salah feels lighter, dua becomes more heartfelt, and remembrance of Allah turns into a source of comfort rather than obligation. Happiness is no longer dependent on perfect circumstances, but on a strong connection with Allah. Even during hardship, a quiet serenity exists within the believer because reliance on Allah replaces fear with hope, confusion with clarity, and restlessness with calmness. And much of human stress comes from the desire to control every detail of life. People carefully plan their futures, set expectations for relationships, careers, and personal goals, and imagine specific outcomes that they believe will bring happiness. When reality unfolds differently, disappointment and frustration take over. Letting go of control does not mean abandoning responsibility or effort. It means recognizing the limits of human power and accepting that Allah's plan is greater than human understanding. True peace begins when a person stops fighting against destiny and starts trusting the wisdom behind it. Every person has experienced moments when life did not go according to plan. Doors close unexpectedly, opportunities disappear, relationship end, and dreams seem delayed. At first, these moments feel painful and confusing because the human mind naturally believes it knows what is best. However, with time, many people realize that what once felt like a loss was actually protection. Situations that seemed perfect might have carried hidden harm, and delays often prepare a person for something better. Acceptance of Allah's plan transforms regret into gratitude because the believer understands that divine wisdom sees beyond the present moment. Trying to control everything creates constant anxiety. The mind becomes occupied with what if, questions, and fear of uncertainty. A person may worry endlessly about outcomes that are not in their hands. Acceptance brings emotional relief because it shifts focus from results to effort. When someone does their best while trusting Allah with the outcome, they free themselves from unnecessary pressure. Success becomes a blessing rather than an obsession, and failure becomes a lesson rather than a personal defeat. Acceptance also strengthens patience. When difficulties arise, the believer remembers that Allah never acts without purpose. Hardships are not random events. They are part of a carefully designed journey meant to shape character and deepen faith. Instead of resisting challenges, a person learns to face them with calmness and resilience. Acceptance allows the heart to remain stable even when circumstances are uncertain because faith replaces fear. Letting go of control requires humility. Humans often struggle with surrender because they want certainty and immediate answers. Yet life repeatedly teaches that certainty belongs only to Allah. The believer learns to submit not out of weakness, but out of trust. Just as a child feels safe trusting a caring parent, the servant of Allah finds comfort in surrendering to divine guidance. This surrendering removes the exhausting need to have everything figured out. Another powerful effect of accepting Allah's plan is emotional healing from past disappointments. Many people carry pain from events they wish had happened differently. They replay memories, wondering how life might have changed if certain choices or opportunities had gone another way. Acceptance helps release this burden. When a person believes that Allah's decree is perfect, they stop blaming themselves excessively or dwelling on mischances. The past becomes part of a meaningful story rather than a source of endless regret. Acceptance also nurtures gratitude. When expectations are rigid, people overlook blessings that already exist. By trusting Allah's plan, a person begins to notice goodness even in unexpected situations. Small blessings become visible and appreciation grows. Gratitude naturally leads to happiness because the heart focuses on what it has rather than what it lacks. Living with acceptance does not eliminate effort or ambition. Instead, it balances ambition with faith. A believer continues striving, improving, and working toward goals while understanding that outcomes are not fully controlled by human effort. This mindset creates emotional stability because success does not lead to arrogance and setbacks do not lead to despair. When someone truly accepts Allah's plan, they stop comparing their timeline to others. Each life unfolds according to divine wisdom, and what arrives later may carry greater blessing. Waiting becomes easier when the heart trusts that Allah never delays something good without a reason. Acceptance replaces impatience with hope and transforms uncertainty into a journey guided by faith, allowing the believer to walk through life with calm confidence, knowing that every chapter is written with mercy and purpose. Human beings naturally seek connection, support, and understanding from others. Relationships are an important part of life, yet many people unknowingly attach their emotional stability to human approval and attention. They expect others to always understand them, remain loyal, fulfill promises, and provide constant comfort. When these expectations are not met, disappointment turns into sadness, anger, or loneliness. Depending completely on people for emotional security often leads to instability because human beings are imperfect, limited, and constantly changing. True peace begins when the heart learns to rely on Allah rather than placing ultimate dependence on creation. People may love you sincerely, but they cannot always be present when you need them most. Friends may become distant, loved ones may misunderstand your intentions, and even those closest to you may fail to provide the comfort you seek. This is not always due to bad intentions. It is simply part of human limitation. Every person carries their own struggles, weaknesses, and responsibilities. When happiness depends entirely on others, emotions rise and fall according to how people treat you. A single word, action, or absence can deeply affect your mood and self-worth. Relying on Allah brings emotional stability because Allah's presence never disappears. Unlike human relationships that are affected by time, distance, or misunderstanding, Allah is always near and always aware of what lies within the heart. When a believer turns to Allah, they find a source of support that does not fade. Even in moments of isolation, rejection, or heartbreak, the believer knows they are never truly alone. This awareness fills the heart with strength and reduces the fear of abandonment. Depending on people often creates unhealthy expectations. A person may expect others to heal their pain, validate their worth, or solve their problems. When those expectations are not fulfilled, resentment grows. Reliance on Allah shifts these expectations toward the one who has unlimited power and mercy. Instead of seeking constant validation from others, the believer seeks acceptance from Allah. This change brings freedom because self-worth is no longer tied to public opinion or social approval. When reliance is placed on Allah, relationships also become healthier. You begin to love people without burdening them with unrealistic emotional demands. Instead of expecting perfection, you appreciate others while understanding the human nature. Forgiveness becomes easier because you recognize that, in Allah is flawless. Relationships transform from dependency into mutual care and compassion. Relying on Allah also protects the heart from excessive fear of loss. Many people live in constant anxiety, afraid of losing someone they love or something they value. While love and attachment are natural, dependence on Allah ensures that loss does not completely break the soul. The believer understands that everything in this world is temporary and entrusted by Allah. When something leaves, it is returned to its true owner. This understanding softens grief and prevents despair. Another benefit of relying on Allah rather than people is emotional independence. A believer no longer feels pressured to constantly please others at the expense of personal values or faith. Decisions become guided by sincerity toward Allah instead of fear of judgment. Confidence grows because the believer seeks Allah's pleasure above all else. This inner independence allows a person to remain kind and respectful while staying firm in their principles. Turning to Allah through dua strengthens this reliance. When worries arise, instead of immediately searching for human reassurance, the believer first speaks to Allah. Sharing fears, hopes, and struggles in prayer creates a deep sense of relief. The heart feels heard and understood in a way no human conversation can fully provide. Over time, this habit builds a strong spiritual connection that becomes a constant source of comfort. Relying on Allah does not mean distancing oneself from people or rejecting relationships. It means placing ultimate trust where it truly belongs, while appreciating human connections as blessings rather than foundations of identity. When the heart depends on Allah, disappointment from people loses its power to shatter peace, and emotional balance remains steady regardless of how circumstances or relationships change. And emotional balance remains steady regardless of how circumstances or relationships change. Human beings naturally desire companionship, understanding, and emotional support. From a young age, people learn to depend on family, friends, and society for comfort and reassurance. While relationships are an important blessing, many individuals unknowingly place their deepest emotional reliance on people rather than on Allah. They expect others to always understand their feelings, fulfill their needs, and remain constant sources of happiness. When these expectations are not met, the heart experiences disappointment, insecurity, and emotional exhaustion. True contentment begins when reliance shifts from human beings who are limited and imperfect to Allah, who is constant and never fails as servants. People change as life changes. Priorities shift, circumstances evolve, and even sincere relationships go through periods of distance or misunderstanding. Someone who once offered constant attention may become busy with their own struggles. A person you trusted deeply may unintentionally hurt you. When happiness depends entirely on people, emotional stability becomes fragile because it relies on something unpredictable. The believer learns that while people can support and care for one another, they were never meant to carry the weight of the heart's ultimate dependence. Relying on Allah brings a sense of security that human relationships cannot provide. Allah knows every hidden worry, every silent tear, and every unspoken fear. Even when no one else understands your pain, Allah understands completely. This awareness creates a powerful feeling of companionship that removes loneliness from the heart. A believer realizes that they are always seen, always heard, and always valued by their Creator. This connection fills emotional gaps that no human interaction can permanently satisfy. When reliance is placed on people, approval becomes addictive. Many individuals begin shaping their behavior to gain acceptance, fearing their behavior to gain acceptance, fearing rejection or criticism. They may silence their true feelings, compromise their values, or constantly seek validation from others. This dependence leads to anxiety because self-worth becomes tied to external opinions. Relying on Allah frees a person from this emotional pressure. The believer focuses on pleasing Allah rather than chasing constant approval from creation. Confidence grows because identity is rooted in faith rather than fluctuating social acceptance. This shift also changes how a person experiences disappointment. Instead of feeling shattered when someone fails them, the believer recognizes human limitation. Forgiveness becomes easier because expectations are realistic. You understand that people make mistakes just as you do. Rather than allowing resentment to grow, the heart remains soft and balanced, appreciating the good in relationship without expecting perfection. Depending on Allah strengthens emotional resilience during hardship. When relationships break, when trust is shaken, or when loneliness appears, the believer turns toward Allah instead of collapsing under pain. Dua becomes a safe space where emotions can be expressed without fear of judgment. Speaking to Allah brings relief because there is complete honesty between the servant and the Creator. This habit transforms moments of weakness into opportunities for spiritual closeness. Relying on Allah also protects the heart from fear of abandonment. Many people live with deep anxiety about being left alone or forgotten. They cling tightly to relationships out of fear rather than love. When the heart depends on Allah, this fear weakens because the believer knows that Allah never abandons His servants. Even if everyone walks away, divine companionship remains. This realization creates inner strength and emotional independence. Healthy reliance on Allah allows relationships to flourish naturally. Love becomes sincere rather than possessive. Care becomes balanced rather than overwhelming. A person appreciates others as blessings from Allah instead of treating them as sources of complete fulfillment. Gratitude replaces dependency, and emotional balance replaces insecurity. As reliance on Allah deepens, the heart experiences freedom. You no longer feel controlled by people's opinions, moods, or actions. Kindness toward others continues, but peace no longer depends on their response. The believer walks through life with calm assurance, knowing that while people may come and go, Allah's presence remains constant, providing strength, comfort, and stability in every circumstance. Patience becomes easier when a person truly relies on Allah. Life is filled with moments that test emotional strength, faith, and endurance. Difficulties appear in many forms. Delayed success, financial hardship, broken relationships, illness, or uncertainty about the future. In such moments, the human instinct is often to react with frustration, anger, or despair. However, when reliance on Allah is strong, patience transforms from a painful struggle into an act of trust and spiritual growth. The believer understands that every challenge carries purpose, and this understanding brings calmness even during hardship. Patience in Islam is not passive waiting or silent suffering. It is an active state of faith where a person continues to do what is right while trusting Allah's wisdom. When someone relies on Allah, they believe that no difficulty is meaningless. Every test is designed to strengthen character, purify the heart, and bring the servant closer to their Creator. This perspective changes how hardship is experienced. Instead of feeling punished, the believer feels guided and refined through life's trials. Many people lose peace because they expect life to unfold according to their personal timeline. They want immediate answers to their prayers, instant solutions to problems, and quick relief from pain. When results are delayed, impatience grows and faith may weaken. Reliance on Allah teaches that timing belongs to Him alone. What seems like delayed may actually be building strength, teaching lessons, or protecting a person from unseen harm. Recognizing this wisdom helps the believer wait with hope rather than frustration. Patience also protects the heart from negative reactions during difficulty. Without patience, hardship can lead to bitterness, complaints, and emotional exhaustion. A patient person, however, maintains dignity and composure. They acknowledge pain but refuse to lose faith. Reliance on Allah allows them to surrender their worries through prayer and remembrance, replacing anxiety with tranquility. Knowing that Allah sees every struggle provides comfort that human reassurance cannot match. Trials often reveal the depth of a person's faith. During ease, gratitude is simple, but during hardship, patience becomes the true measure of reliance on Allah. A believer who trusts Allah understands that difficulties are temporary while rewards are eternal. This belief gives strength to continue moving forward even when circumstances seem overwhelming. The heart becomes resilient because it is anchored in faith rather than external conditions. Patience nurtures emotional maturity. Instead of reacting impulsively to challenges, the believer learns reflection and self-control. A due with anger softens, decisions become wiser, and perspective widens. Hardship teaches humility and compassion, allowing a person to understand the struggles of others more deeply. Reliance on Allah encourages acceptance without losing determination, balancing surrender with effort. Another beauty of patience is the inner peace it creates when a person stops fighting against what cannot be changed and instead places trust in Allah. Mental stress decreases. Overthinking fades because the believer understands that Allah manages every detail of life. Even when solutions are not immediately visible, hope remains alive. This hope prevents despair and keeps the heart connected to Allah through continuous remembrance and dua. Patience also strengthens gratitude. Difficult experiences often make people more aware of blessings they previously overlooked. Health, safety, family, and simple moments of ease become more meaningful after hardship. A patient heart recognizes that every state of life carries mercy, whether through comfort or challenge. This awareness deepens appreciation and fosters lasting contentment. Reliance on Allah during trials transforms suffering into worship, and during hardship with patience becomes an act of devotion that earns spiritual reward and draws the believer closer to divine mercy. Each moment of restraint, each silent prayer, and each act of perseverance becomes a testimony of faith. The believer learns that patience is not merely enduring difficulty, but trusting that Allah's promise of ease, reward, and wisdom accompanies every struggle faced with sincere reliance and unwavering faith. Gratitude is one of the most powerful sources of happiness, yet it is often overlooked in the pursuit of more possessions, achievements, or recognition. Many people believe happiness will arrive once they gain something new, a better job, more wealth, stronger relationships, or a different lifestyle. However, the heart rarely finds lasting satisfaction through constant desire for more. True joy begins when a person recognizes and appreciates what Allah has already given. Reliance on Allah naturally nurtures gratitude because the believer understands that every blessing, whether small or great, comes directly from Him. When a person relies on Allah, they begin to see life differently. Instead of focusing only on what is missing, attention shifts toward what is present. Everyday blessings that once seemed ordinary become meaningful signs of divine mercy. The ability to breathe easily, to wake up safely, to have food, shelter, or even moments of peace are no longer taken for granted. Gratitude transforms perspective, allowing happiness to grow from appreciation rather than accumulation. Many people fall into the trap of comparison, measuring their lives against others. Social expectations and constant exposure to the successes of others create feelings of inadequacy. Someone else always appears wealthier, happier, or more successful. This comparison steals contentment because it directs focus toward perceived shortcomings. Reliance on Allah protects the heart from this cycle. The believer understands that Allah distributes blessings according to perfect wisdom. Each person receives a unique test and a unique set of favors designed specifically for their journey. Recognizing this truth replaces envy with acceptance and gratitude. Gratitude also strengthens emotional resilience during hardship. Even in difficult times, a grateful heart searches for hidden blessings. Challenges may coexist with mercy, and pain may carry lessons that lead to growth. A believer who relies on Allah understands that blessings are not limited to moments of ease. Sometimes protection itself is a blessing, even when it comes disguised as disappointment. Closed doors may prevent harm, and delays may prepare the heart for something greater. Gratitude allows a person to find light, even in moments of darkness. Expressing gratitude deepens the connection between the servant and Allah. When a person acknowledges blessings through words, actions, and worship, they develop greater awareness of Allah's presence in daily life. Simple acts such as saying Alhamdulillah sincerely, performing prayers with mindfulness, or helping others out of appreciation for personal blessings strengthen faith. Gratitude turns ordinary moments into acts of worship and transforms routine life into a spiritual experience. Another powerful effect of gratitude is contentment. Instead of constantly chasing external validation, the believer feels satisfied with what Allah has provided. Contentment does not eliminate ambition or effort. Rather, it balances striving with peace. A grateful person continues to work toward goals while maintaining inner calm, knowing that their worth is not defined by material success alone. This balance prevents burnout and protects the heart from disappointment. Gratitude also improves the relationship. When a person appreciates Allah's blessings, they naturally become more appreciative of people around them. Kindness increases, complaints decrease, and interactions become more positive. A grateful individual spreads peace because their heart is not burdened by constant dissatisfaction. Others feel valued and respected, strengthening bonds of compassion and understanding. Reliance on Allah teaches that gratitude itself invites more blessings. When a believer acknowledges what they have been given, they open their heart to receive further mercy. This increase may appear in many forms: inner peace, strengthened faith, unexpected opportunities, or emotional stability. Gratitude shifts focus from scarcity to abundance, allowing happiness to grow naturally without dependence on perfect circumstances. As gratitude becomes a daily habit, the believer experiences a profound transformation. Worries lose their intensity, resentment fades, and hope becomes stronger. Happiness no longer depends on achieving everything desired, but on recognizing Allah's continuous care and generosity present in every moment of life. Dua is one of the most intimate and powerful ways a believer connects with Allah. It is more than simply asking for needs or solutions. It is a direct conversation between the servant and the Creator. When a person relies only on Allah, dua becomes a source of emotional healing, comfort, and strength. In moments when the heart feels overwhelmed, confused, or broken, turning to Allah through sincere supplication brings relief that no world solution can fully provide. Human beings often carry worries silently. They may hesitate to share their deepest fears with others out of embarrassment, fear of judgment, or the feeling that no one truly understands their struggles. Dua removes this burden because Allah already knows what lies within the heart. Nothing needs to be hidden or explained perfectly. A believer can speak honestly, express weakness, cry without shame, and reveal every concern, knowing that Allah listens with complete understanding and mercy. Reliance on Allah transforms dua from a last resort into a constant habit. Instead of turning to prayer only during crisis, the believer begins to communicate with Allah in every situation, during happiness, gratitude, confusion, and hardship. This continuous connection creates emotional stability because the heart never feels disconnected from divine support. Problems may still exist, but they feel lighter when shared with Allah. One of the greatest comforts of dua is the reminder that no situation is beyond Allah's power. Human solutions are limited, and people may feel helpless when facing challenges that seem impossible. Through dua, hope is restored. The believer understands that Allah can change circumstances instantly, open unexpected doors, and create ease where none seemed possible. Even when answers are delayed, faith remains strong because the act of supplication itself strengthens trust in Allah's wisdom. Dua also helps release anxiety caused by overthinking. Many people struggle with thoughts about the future, replaying worries repeatedly in their minds. When these concerns are placed before Allah, the heart experiences relief. The believer acknowledges effort while surrendering outcomes to divine control. This surrendering reduces mental stress because responsibility for the unseen future is no longer carried alone. Another beauty of dua is that it nurtures humility. A person who regularly turns to Allah recognizes their dependence on Him. Success no longer leads to arrogance because the believer remembers that every achievement comes through Allah's permission. Likewise, hardship does not lead to despair because the believer knows they have a direct path to seek help and mercy at any moment. Dua keeps the heart balanced between hope and humility. Reliance on Allah through dua also strengthens patience. When prayers are not answered immediately, the believer learns to trust Allah's timing. They understand that every supplication is heard and responded to in the best way, either through granting what was asked, delaying it for a better moment, or replacing it with something greater. This understanding protects the heart from frustration and deepens faith during waiting periods. Dua becomes a source of emotional renewal. Each time a believer raises their hands, they reconnect with hope and purpose. Feelings of loneliness fade because the heart recognizes constant companionship with Allah. Even in silent moments of the night when the world is asleep and worries feel heavy, speaking to Allah brings tranquility and reassurance. Through sincere supplication, the believer experiences spiritual closeness that cannot be replaced by material comfort. The heart softens, faith strengthens, and worries lose their overwhelming weight. Reliance on Allah through dua transforms fear into trust, sadness into hope, and uncertainty into calm confidence, allowing the believer to walk through life with the comforting awareness that every prayer reaches the one who listens without limitation and responds with perfect wisdom.